What's up, YouTube? Pretty exciting news. It's our first official video upload as a member of the YouTube Partner Program. You may hold your applause. You may hold your applause till the end. But yeah, we finally hit that 1,000 subscriber goal. We got our application in. We got accepted. Done with that. Now we can start uploading YouTube content. We've already been uploading content, so nothing's really going to change. But we get that official partner title, so really cool there. Huge shout out to everybody that's hit the sub button or even just like watched, like the videos, whatever the case may be. Everybody's done a fantastic job of being a part of the road to this point. So now it's just this point forward. So enough about that. Let's get back to the shadow part, which is why y'all are all here. Trying out some 4-color. We played 4-color on stream yesterday, which, as always, link down and below to the stream if you want to come check out some of these shadow leagues live, as well as link to the Twitter, first place that gets updated whenever a stream does go live, so you never miss out on anything, and a link to the CntrlFreak Discord if you want to come give suggestions, feedback, thoughts. Oh man, why am I hiccuping? Anything like that. So 4-color is kind of the natural progression to Jund Shadow that we've been playing. Like, hey, the weakness of Jund Shadow is not being able to fight on the stack against things like Beanstalks or Tron or Mono Black, stuff like that. So we get the bulk of the Jund shell, the Shadow, Thoughtseize, Ragavan, Red Base Interaction, Tarmogoyf, Bowmaster, in my case, the Fable Kroxa package, and we get to throw in Stubborn Denial. Kind of the most efficient counterspell-esque card that we have access to, with Tarmogoyf, Kroxa, Shadow, all enabling it, plus the potential of like a Questing Druid or an Orc Army token from Bowmaster getting big enough to enable Stub. Some of the questions you might have is like, how on earth are you fitting Kroxa in this? Well, if you notice with all of our shocks and basic mana base, none of them produce or don't produce either red or black. So fairly easy to get Kroxa online, surprisingly, as long as you get up to that 4th land, which with 19 plus Ragavan treasures, Fable of the Mirror Breaker treasures, isn't the most difficult thing in the world. We do get to keep access to Giganta out of our sideboard, as well as throw in a bunch of new blue cards in the board that we didn't have in Jund before, the Flusterstorms, or the Cascade decks. Not so much the Beanstalks, but for the Rhinos, for the Living Ends, Spell Pierce, little additional interaction on the stack. And then a lot of our other interaction kind of carries over. Terra Sunder, Veil of Summer, EE, Terminate. Deciding to run Alpine Moon over Blood Moon because Blood Moon in our 4-color mana base is pretty bad, even though it's solid in Jund. And then add in a Fatal Push because we are cutting on 1 mana like creature removal in the main. So adding an extra piece to the board kind of makes sense. Let's just go ahead and jump into the video. Then you can judge how good or bad it looks afterwards. Let's move the mouse out of the way so we're not just accidentally clicking stuff. And bam. Not really sure why it captured the mouse this time. Usually it doesn't. But, oh well. Game 1 looks like we're up against Yawgmoth. Get to Thoughtseize. Should pull up their hand. Do I pull up their hand or do I need to go back to the Thoughtseize? There we go. So it's all like Soul Cauldron, Cord, Young Wolf, Bowmaster, Grist, Eldritch Evolution. Really solid hand. They didn't have a 3rd land and they discarded 1 to the Kroxa, so I'm assuming they don't have another land at the moment. But they do have a lot of powerful payoffs. If they find the 3rd land, decide to take the Soul Cauldron because it does help them fight over our Kroxa, which I kind of want access to. Kroxa is a great way to kind of close out the games against decks like Yawgmoth. when you need pressure that can kind of not care about chump blockers. When it does find a wall of roots, which is a little annoying, but like I said, we do have some pretty good pressure. And we have the prerequisite 4 mana to get back Kroxa. So really solid board position for us. We just kind of need to keep the pressure going. And I love this because we escape Kroxa, which you think is like a Nombo with Tarmogoyf, and our Tarmogoyf actually gets bigger by discarding their Grist. So we nuke our yard. Goyf doesn't shrink. Sideboarding against Yawgmoth, boarding out like some of the stubs. The Ragavans get chumped really easily. I didn't have enough to board in, so I ended up having to keep 2 Stubborn Denials in the deck, which is okay against the Soul Cauldron, the One Ring, Elven Chorus, all that stuff, Court of Calling. But I would prefer those to be like Stern Scoldings, because I think Grist is usually a bigger problem than most of the other stuff. So going forward, I might swap out like the 2 Flusterstorms for 2 Stern Scoldings. I know that's like a little premature to say in the video, but there were a couple times that was the case. And then if I play against like Scam, then I would rather have that be Stern Scolding. And with how popular Scam is right now, that could very well be something we need to look into. So we decide to go for the Fable here so that we can hopefully get the land we need to get back Kroxa, ditch something dead. Opponent doesn't have an attack, so I'm kind of assuming they top decked a Court of Calling. They didn't play a land. They could have played like a Yawgmoth or a Grist if they drew it, or One Ring. So we attack. They block with the Young Wolf. We Bowmaster in response to the Undying effects. They have 1 less to be able to cord, and it turns out that, yeah, their last card was in fact a Court of Calling. So we got kind of rewarded for our attack first into the block, which I honestly didn't really think that they would block, but you know. And Bowmaster is a pretty relevant threat for them, unfortunately. So we do have to clog up the ground a little bit. Again, we're just trying to get to Kroxa next turn, and then we'll figure it out after that. Attacks in for 1, and their last card is a Shieldred. Ugh. So I can't crack the Bauble, or I'm dead to the Shieldred. So I have to just like hope that they block the Shaman token or something. They do not. So we escape the Kroxa, put them down to 4. And then my only out is they have to brick. Either brick and I draw the second bolt, or attack in with the Shieldred and let me block plus bolt it. Both options fairly unlikely. I thought there was a chance here when they got the Grist, like maybe they sack a dude, kill the Kroxa, and attack in, and I can block and bolt the Shieldred. But they didn't, so instead we just have to see if we top deck the second bolt, and nope. So bolt them once just to put the fear into them. But either way, we do not manage to get there on that one. Go into game 2, or game 3. Sideboarding, not really changing up much on the play or the draw. Again, I would like to have Stern Scolding in the deck, because I do think Yawgmoth is like one of those bad enough matchups that I want to have a little bit of a hedge for it. But with like Tarmogoyf on 2 into Bolt or Bowmaster on 3, maybe Shadow, this is like a fairly good pressure hand. Not perfect, but Kind of hoping our opponent blocks the Goyf. They do not. I don't want to just fire off this bolt for no reason if they're not blocking. Hey, look, it's one of the ugly rings. Ugly, terrible looking one ring. Then I'll just hang out for a turn. I don't really need to flash in the Bowmaster until they activate the one ring. So they activated here. I can flash in the Bowmaster. I know I can't target them, but like even a ping on myself with Shadow isn't the worst. And the important part is I want to get this wall of roots off the board. Now I could also like ping my own Bowmaster to put creature in the yard and give myself Delirium for this Unholy Heat. But with only 4 mana available, there's not like a lot that I'm afraid of. If they have Yawgmoth plus Grist, that would be pretty annoying. But it looks like they're just banking on like a Collected Company or Quarter Calling. Sorry, not Company. So we do get to see that. We end up taking the Terrace Under because I don't want them to Terrace Under my Shadow. I want to like keep my pressure up. It looks like just Chord for 1 for the Yawgmoth. That's fine. Then we'll just pass the turn back after we add our Giganta. We don't care about just the Yawgmoth. If they find like a land and Quarter Calling for another Undying creature, that's okay. Instead, they decide to go for another copy of the One Ring. And they did miss their land drop last turn with the ring, which is really huge for us. Looks like they're just wanting to go for another copy of Chord of Calling and instead decide to scoop it up. So, nice little win over Yawgmoth there. Really felt like the Kroxa game 1 and the Tarmogoyf Pressure game 2 or game 3 provided a lot of the punch. On to match number 2, Thoughtseize, and we're just up against like some sort of mono white value taxes-ish deck. Giver, Stoneforge, Extraction Specialist. Really surprised that they immediately Stoneforge for the Cauldron here. Not really a line that I particularly like out of Stoneforge decks. Because when you see Thoughtseize on 1, Red Source on 2, you kind of assume, or should be assuming, that your opponent's got a removal spell. And I know they have the Extraction Specialist to potentially get the Stoneforge back. But that's still, like, pretty greedy. I know they have the Cauldron here, but if the game keeps going, I can't attack through, like, the Cauldron and multiple creatures. So my hope here is that I can just get some good damage in around the Cauldron, and then potentially give myself the out of like Lightning Bolt into another Lightning Bolt or something while throwing some chunk blockers out there. Likelihood is fairly low, but fairly low isn't 0 last time I checked. So like them attacking him with the Germ token here means, hey, if I top deck like a removal spell for the Extraction Specialist, maybe I've got a chance. But nope. Top deck a Polluted Delta, go to game 2. This looks like one of those matches that I would consider absolutely atrocious for us. Most of their cards like Vials or most of their decks Vials and 2-for-1s. Little 1-lander on the play. I'm kind of banking on them having just like a 1-drop here and Ragavan I get to Unholy Heat the 1-drop, get in with Ragavan. They don't have a 1-drop, so I can get a threat down, but obviously Sanctifier on Vet kind of makes my life a little difficult. We could go for EE, but I don't really want to wipe out Sanctifier and my Goyf. So instead, since I keep drawing these Goyfs, I'm going to consider like EE for 0, blow up the token. But they've got Evoke, Solitude, Ephemerate. So yeah, we're just going to quality of life get out of that one. Get rid of all 3 of our Goyfs in 1 turn cycle. Nope. Yeah. On the draw, 1 lander. So it's a 1 lander, but I've got like Bobble, Thoughtseize, Unholy Heat. So I've got some good interaction if I don't find the land right away. Obviously, I want to find the land, but I'm pretty okay keeping 1 landers that have like Bobble, for instance. Especially 1 landers on the draw with a Bobble. So get to kill the Dolthy. Kill the Rag, kill the Dolthy, Thoughtseize away the Fable. Now we know their hand is a Takenuma and a Bowmasters. Bowmaster can't kill my Shadow, but Terminate can. They choose not to play the Takenuma and hold up the Bowmasters, so we're just going to get down our double Shadow, because now they can't top deck a Fury when they just have Takenuma plus a red, or Takenuma and a black card. So they try to Bowmaster trade with one of my Shadows. I'm going to Bowmaster ping myself to grow my Shadows. So now I still get to protect 1 through a Fury. Good old Questing Druid missing on a land. I could have played out the Shadow there if I wanted to be like a little safer and hold the Questing Druid, but I really wanted to hit a land and like play both. Obviously a little greedy, but you know, then fairly okay trading off Shadow for the Grief there, because I've got the Giganta. I've got like the extra card available to me. Then we play out a Goyf that just kind of embarrasses Fury here, and opponent scoops it up. Again, I think these like green, black, red based Shadow decks are really solid into Scam. Between Unholy Heat, Bolt, Terminate, you got like the best interaction for Scam. And then Tarmogoyf can very easily outgrow everything that they've got. Sideboarding against Scam, I'm bringing in like Veil of Summer, extra push, extra Terminate. If you're running anything like Autumnal Gloom, that's coming in. And I'm just boarding out like a bunch of Ragavans and some number of Thoughtseize on top of that. And that's kind of like it for my sideboarding. And it's got the Bowmaster ping. We're just going to go ahead and Bowmaster their Bowmaster. That puts creature in the yard to grow Tarmogoyf past this Orc Army token. So we know Goyf's going to survive. We get to keep playing to the board. And I mean, at a certain point, like, if you have enough removal spell, there's a good chance you're going to win the game. And our opponent tanks for a bit and scoops it up there. So, on to match number 4. Yeah. 4. On the play, Ragavan. Not much you can say. Like, good mix of lands and spells. Got some interaction with Bowmaster and Bolt. Some card advantage with Questing Druid. Looks like we're up against what probably is mURktide with a no companion Ragavan. So we're just going to go ahead and Windmill Slam our turn 2 Bowmaster. Hope that our opponent doesn't have a Subtlety and instead they have a Scoop. So we go to game 2. Tempo. Sideboarding against mURktide, like Terminates coming in. Board out a bunch of Thoughtseizes and Ragavan on the draw. But Terminate's coming in. The extra push is coming in. Veil of Summer, Terra Sunder. Also bring in Terra Sunder against Scam. But Terra Sunder deals with like a big mURktide. Can deal with an Evoked Elemental or like a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Blood Moon, stuff like that. So pretty versatile. Unlicensed Hearse it can hit. Now that I've got my 3rd land drop, I really want one of these to get a basic swamp, so I'm not just like SOL to Blood Moon. Speak of the Devil. Stubborn Denial on cue. Now, if I was smart, I would have played the Polluted Delta I guess it doesn't matter because I don't have basic island in this deck. But I could have played the Polluted Delta and then had like the Bloodstained Mire to get either the mountain or the swamp. But the likelihood of me ever tutoring up the mountain intentionally is pretty low. Unless it's like a life total consideration. We draw the Bowmaster right after they decide to not go for this bauble. So that's pretty fun. I didn't bring up their questing druid, but I think it was a land and a mURktide. But the mURktide at the moment's only like a 5/5. Yeah, it was that Steam Vents and a mURktide. So they play out the Murk. I've got the Unholy Heat to potentially answer it. Go ahead and get my Swamp. Attempt to bait out the counter spell with Questing Druid. Instead, they let it resolve, so I get to terminate the mURktide, get like my full Questing Druid value, play out the land as well, so now I can get a Blood Crypt and Unholy Heat if I need to. So everything working out fairly well. Going to drop in their own Questing Druid. We'll attack in, see if we can get the chump block first. Nope. So we'll add Giganta, pass. Opponent goes for Subtlety, and now we get to double up on their 2 threats with our 2 removal. If they do follow up with like a mURktide, we've got Kicked Unholy Heat to deal with that. So that's not the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario would be like removal spell for the Bowmaster, dash or Ragavan. But they play Channeler and Channeler tapped land. We top deck Fatal Push, and now we're just in like phenomenal position because, hey, what are you going to have that we care about? Here's Under the Blood Moon just because I can. Don't need to, but I can, so why not? On to round number 5. Outside of that mono-white matchup, pretty smooth league. And I've been really impressed with the quality of the opening hands out of this deck. Seems like we've had Ragavan early and often. We've had like Stubborn Denial a reasonable amount of the time. And it's going to scam a Grief. Unfortunately, they have the Undying Evil instead of the Not Dead After All, so the Grief comes back untapped. Fortunately for us, we draw like gods and hit the Lightning Bolt immediately into their Thoughtseize. Interesting Thoughtseize decision here. So they had Orcish Bowmaster, Dauthi, Fury, Molten Collapse. No second land. So my options are between like take the Bowmaster, because if they hit the second land, I think that's the worst for me, where they get to kill the Ragavan and have a board. If they hit a land and Dauthi, I get to keep attacking with the Ragavan. I could take, say, the Molten Collapse or the Fury. I could take the Fury, so if they don't hit the land, they can't kill my Ragavan. But again, that leaves the Bowmaster, where if they do hit the land, that's like worst case scenario for me. So I decided to take the Bowmaster, let them 2-for-1 themselves to Fury the Ragavan, and get fortunate enough to be able to follow it up with a Tarmogoyf and a stub back up, and opponent scoops it up to our Tarmogoyf. I guess decided we were winning the race too much, but we'll take that. We already talked about sideboarding and scam. On the draw, Ragavans are definitely coming out, and then some number of Thoughtseizes. Kind of depends on how much you have to bring in. Since I'm not running Stern Scolding in this list, I've got like a couple less slots. Getting the second land is phenomenal, so now we can like interact with Bowmaster if we want. We've got Veil of Summer. I like going ahead and killing the Bowmaster just in case they've got an Undying effect. They can't get value out of that. But like I said in the match earlier against Scam, if you got enough red removal spells, you probably have a reasonable shot at winning. Again, killing off the Bowmaster so I can get this bobble draw. Molten Collapse is fairly weak into Kroxa, so that's a plus. Third copy of Bowmaster's okay. Well, we will Bowmaster your Bowmaster. Hope you don't have an Undying effect, but they don't. And then Fury off the Molten Collapse, plus a Rag. So pretty rough spot for us if we don't find like a Shadow or a Tarmogoyf. Or a Bowmaster of our own. Opponent going straight for attacks here means I think that they've got to agree for a Fury. Instead, they have a Shieldred. Kind of a rough one for the home team. We do immediately top deck the Unholy Heat, though, so big props to us yet again for being really god tier card drawers. Dolphy, however, is a little bit of an issue. We can play Shadow, tack in with our Bowmaster and our Orc. We know they've got a Ragavan and an Unknown. We're just kind of hoping to put ourselves in a position to top deck a win. If we'd found a removal spell for the Ragavan, we would have had the win there. But we do not, so opponent gets to chump block and stay alive. On to game number 3. A lot of back and forth in these games. And you can see where Bowmaster gets a lot of its hype. Because, like, Bowmaster is such a great answer. Such a great answer to opposing Bowmasters. But if somebody is, like, out Bowmastering the other, then it becomes really one-sided really quick. Because one's able to, like, keep the pressure up, increase their pressure with the Orc army, while also dealing with their opponent's answer for one card. So we get to Veil of Summer Thoughtseize, get down our Goyf. They have a Terminate, that's pretty fine. They do not, so we're going to Questing Druid for the land, which thankfully we hit. Thoughtseize away, a Ragavan, so now they're just Undying Evil and lands. Top decking a Fable's good, but we've got like Questing Druid, Ragavan to follow, or Questing Druid, Shadow to follow it up. Get our beef on the board. Our big dumb attackers. Now we've got kicked Fable or kicked Terra Sunder if we need it to. All right. We had lethal there with the Terra Sunder on the Goblin Shaman token if they didn't have a follow-up. Or they needed 3. Yeah, they needed 3 blockers total to fend off our board. Or like 2 blockers and a removal spell. And we knew they had a basic swamp at the start of the turn. They ditched the Undying Evil. They played the swamp. So we knew they only had 2 cards. They couldn't have another blocker and a removal spell. And yeah, so they ended up playing the Fable. Got to kill the Shaman one way or the other. We just happened to top deck the Fatal Push. But the Fatal Push didn't actually matter. We had the removal spell for the Shaman to be able to attack through. Man, I feel like I was talking 90 to nothing through that video. But yeah, that's 4 color for the most part. The Stubborn Denials. Let's talk about some of the flex spots real quick. So the core of the deck that's really been impressive for me with Jund is like the Fable, Kroxa, Goyf, Bowmaster, Shadow, Thoughtseize, Ragavan, Red Removal. That part has been like over the top great for me. Stubborn Denial was the counterspell I wanted to try out first because that's like the automatic go-to when you think ferocious creatures, Death Shadow, stuff like that. We might be in a format where there's more value to things like Stern Scolding, maybe even Drown in the Loch. There's not so many endurances running around right now, but Stern Scolding, Spell Pierce can help fight some random stuff here and there, though I do think Stub, to me, gets the edge over Spell Pierce because of cards like Leyline Binding. But Pierce is still good. Stern Scolding, Tishana's Tidebinder, we've tried out in some Sultai recently, and that's been very impressive. So if you wanted to have the blue splash to include some number of Tidebinders, I don't think that's out of the question. Questing Druid. I want to say Questing Druid's been great for me, but it really hasn't. It's been like okay at times. It's looked decent at times, but 9 times out of 10, it's just been replacing like a removal spell that if I had just had the removal spell, I wouldn't need to Questing Druid and like try to dig for a removal spell. I would just have it. It's a good value card if you've got like the mana to do stuff with it. We don't always have the mana. If you're having to Questing Druid to like try to find a land, it can be kind of mopey because then you end up like paying 2 mana, exile 2 cards that you can't do anything with. If you don't find the land, then you're not playing the Questing Druid right there either. So you really have to have it as like an end of your opponent's turn thing. And that creates some awkward scenarios because you don't always have the ability to like hold up mana through their turn and then Questing Druid. So I'm really considering dropping those again. I know I've been like on and off Questing Druid for the last month or so, but considering dropping those again to find something that's just good more often. Might not be as impactful when it's great, but just something that like raises the floor a bit. You know what I mean? So Questing Druid's on the chopping block. I probably don't want 4 Stubborn Denials, especially with like Scam being so popular. Stubborn Denial is really good when you're able to land and keep your threat around and then counter like something that would win your opponent the game. With Scam, they've got so many ways of like dealing with our threats or making our threats kind of obsolete that countering something just doesn't matter that much. Like you counter the Fable and they get to Blood Moon, or you counter the Blood Moon and they get to Terminate. You get to counter the Terminate and they get to Undying. Like it's kind of fighting an uphill battle. So I do think I would like to look into some Stern Scoldings in one of those spots. In the sideboard, I mentioned the 2 Flusterstorms. I think Stern Scolding would be a better option there. But it depends on what the main deck counterspell configuration goes towards. Like if I throw in a Stern Scolding and a Pierce in the main or Spell Snare or something, then I kind of want to keep the Flusterstorms in the board because they 1-for-1 each other. Like Flusterstorm's going to be really good against the Cascade decks, where Stern Scolding's going to be really good against the non-Cascade decks. So it's a pretty easy transfer pre and post board. Alpine Moon's decent, Terra Sunder's decent. Back to Nature. Every time I play green, people are like, "Oh, play Back to Nature. You need Back to Nature." And I just don't know if that's the case. Like, do you need Back to Nature when you've got Terra Sunder plus like the counter spells? Like what's the odds of your opponent having 3 enchantments on board to where Back to Nature actually matters? And then all the other enchantment decks are just like 4 Urza Saga and that's it. So Terra Sunder does the same job against those while also being able to kick against a Scam Threat or mURktide or whatever. So yeah. That's about it. I've played a few leagues with 4-color now. Kind of enjoying messing around with it. The blue, I do think, adds a significant punch factor that that Jund was missing. Grixis kind of misses Tarmogoyf, and I do think Tarmogoyf's really, really good. So I'm enjoying kind of messing around with some of these configurations, finding something I like. So if you're wanting to see more of it, I will probably be streaming some more of it in the very near future. Otherwise, thanks all so much for coming and checking out the video. As always, hope y'all have an awesome rest of your day. Stay safe. Enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.